Hello, my sweet friends. Welcome to Lantern Hollow. Here, stories glow softly and help you drift off to sleep. So grab your favorite blanket, snuggle in nice and cozy, and when you're ready, we'll begin. Tonight's story is called The Magic Book. It's about a young boy who loves to read and the mischief he gets into in pursuit of more knowledge. Let us begin. Simon was an intelligent boy who, unlike many others, loved to read. He would sit in his room for hours and enjoy his collection of books. He read and read until one day he realized he had no more books to read. He was most upset at this, but after thinking for a while, he decided that if he could find work in a bookbinding shop, he would be sure that he always had a book to read. Simon told his father about his idea, and much to Simon's delight, his father agreed that he should try to obtain a job. He packed a few belongings in a bag, and after saying goodbye to his father, he set off in hope of finding work in a bookbinder's shop. He walked until he was very tired, but eventually he reached the village where an old master bookbinder lived. Simon soon found the old man and asked him if he might become his apprentice. The bookbinder agreed and said that it would be Simon's job to dust and tidy the books. In time, he would teach him the art of bookbinding. Simon asked if he could read the books when he had finished his work, and the bookbinder replied that he could read every book he could see, with the exception of a small green one that stood all alone on the bookshelf. This, of course, aroused Simon's curiosities. Curious as he might be, the boy promised that he would never, under any circumstances, touch the book. Each day, Simon caught sight of the special book as he was dusting the shelves, and each day he wondered what could be in it. As time went by, it became more and more difficult for him to keep his promise. He was just so curious. One day, Simon's curiosity got the better of him. He just had to know what was in the book, and so he broke his promise. He climbed onto a stool and took down the famous book. Straight away, he began to read it and soon realized it was a magic book. In it were magic formulas for changing anything or anyone into animals, birds, or anything else you could think of. Simon knew now that the bookbinder was really a magician. Putting aside his fears, Simon decided to try out some magic spells in the book. Simon had been feeling homesick for some time now and wanted to visit his family. He decided to change himself into a bird so that he could fly home. He therefore recited one of the magic spells and was delighted when he turned into a swallow. He picked up the magic book with his claws and flew straight out of the window. Meanwhile, Simon's father was in his garden tending to the hens. If he was surprised to see a swallow land on the fence nearby, he was even more surprised when it turned into his beloved son. He could hardly believe his eyes. Whilst his father worked in the garden, Simon explained to him about the magic book. Simon had obviously been thinking of ways to make use of the book, because he told his father that he had had a marvelous idea. He said that they could become rich by putting some of the magic spells to work. To illustrate what he meant, Simon changed himself into a sturdy ox to be sold at the market. It had a red cord tied around its leg, and when this was removed, the ox would once again become Simon. Agreeing that this was a good idea, the old man set off for the market with the ox. Once they arrived at the market, Simon's father had no difficulty finding a buyer for such a fine-looking ox. Soon he had sold the animal for a very good price. Before leaving the market square, Simon's father untied the red cord from around the ox's leg, and of course, the animal promptly disappeared. Naturally, the new owner was amazed and very angry, but he did not know how it could have happened. The next day, Simon transformed himself into a magnificent white horse. His father once again set off for the market in hope of making a lot more money. The horse also had a red cord around its leg to enable it to be changed back into Simon. At the market, everybody wanted to buy the fine white horse. However, amongst the crowd, Simon had seen the old bookbinder. He had used his powers as a magician in order to trace Simon. The horse began to rear and paw the ground in hopes of attracting his father's attention, but it was to no avail. His father did not know who the bookbinder was, and so he did not take any notice of Simon's behavior, as he was not aware of any danger. And as luck would have it, it was the bookbinder who bought the horse. He instructed his servants to lead the horse away immediately, and they did not allow Simon's father time to untie the cord around his leg. He was horrified and could only watch as Simon was led away. Fortunately for Simon, they were traveling along a road and came upon a little boy who wanted to stroke the horse. The horse then whispered to him to untie the red cord. The little boy was so surprised to be spoken to by a horse that he did as he was asked. He was even more surprised when the horse was transformed into a swallow, which flew far away into the sky. However, Simon the Swallow had not allowed for the magician's cunning. He should have realized that the magician also had read the magic book, and this enabled him to transform himself into a hawk and pursue Simon up into the clouds. Being a much bigger bird, he soon caught up with the little swallow. In the short time that Simon had owned the magic book, he learned a lot of the spells. Once again, he transformed himself, and this time into a gold ring. As we all know, gold rings cannot fly, so it dropped from the sky right into the lap of a beautiful girl who was sitting in a garden. That girl was actually a princess, and she immediately put the ring on her finger, wondering where it might have come from. When the hawk saw that his prey had escaped, he landed in the garden near the princess and transformed himself into a handsome young man. He approached the princess and told her that he had lost the ring whilst throwing it in the air and wondered whether she would return it to him. The princess, of course, said she would, and she was just about to hand it back to him when Simon turned himself into a grain of wheat, which fell to the ground. Just as quickly, the clever magician transformed himself into a rooster and began pecking around so that he could pick up the grain of wheat and eat it. With his usual swiftness, Simon thought of an animal that could deal with the rooster. He changed himself into a fox and then promptly jumped on the rooster and ate it. At last, Simon got rid of the magician and could now be himself. He presented himself to the princess wearing his most elegant clothes. She was very impressed and listened in astonishment when Simon told her the story of the magic book. He convinced her that she had saved his life by wearing the ring, and when he asked the princess to marry him, she gladly agreed. Simon and his beautiful princess were soon married and lived happily ever after. The end. That brings our story to an end, my sweet friends. Now it is time to turn the lantern down to a soft glow. Snuggle with your favorite stuffy and let yourself drift off to dreamland. Sleep sweet, my dear friends, and I'll be here when you return to Lantern Hollow. Good night.